Hi, everybody, and welcome to Basic Black. Some of you are joining us on our broadcast, and others of you are joining us on our digital platforms. I'm Crystal Haynes, your host. Tonight, BIPOC representation in media and film. Massachusetts is seen as a hub for filmmaking. Many multi-million-dollar films have actually been shot right here. The Equalizer with Denzel Washington, Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and American Fiction. Plus, the state's 25% tax credit is an added incentive to attract filmmakers and studios to the Commonwealth. But there is also a thriving independent film culture of talented Black, Indigenous, and people of color creating work and telling stories that really resonate with multicultural audiences. So tonight we're going to discuss the challenges of working in the media industry, getting projects off the ground, and empowering the next generation of emerging Black and brown creatives. Joining me tonight via Zoom is Narissa Williams-Scott, CEO and lead producer of That Child Got Talent Entertainment and treasurer of the Secret Society of Black Creatives and professor at Emerson College. Tato Musa is a playwright, director, filmmaker, and assistant professor of screenwriting at Emerson College. Emerson College is my alma mater. Very excited. Gregory Warfield Jr. is the co-founder and executive producer and creative director of Sweeter the Juice Films. And Chris Hope is the founder and executive director of the Loop Lab. That's a nonprofit media education organization and a lecturer of media entrepreneurship at Boston University. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Crystal.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see everyone here. You know, we understand that in 2024, the Hollywood Diversity Report for this year, it indicates that writers and directors of color, they are still underrepresented. Less than 3 out of 10 were people of color. So how is the upcoming Konnect Conference, which we're very excited about, how's that going to help bring filmmakers of color together? And I want to start with you, Narissa.
Well, the conference is happening April 12th through the 14th, and what we're going to be hosting is a bevy of workshops that is going to be an advantageous connection for people to learn the different things that are happening in our industry, from AI taking over to perhaps even learning about what is new and happening in our industry after the strikes. We want to be able to talk to people about the status of the industry coming out of New York as well as LA, as well as abroad. We want to talk about London. We want to talk about Brazil, and we want to talk about different areas within the United States where we're going to also host conversations in regards to what can you do to be a part of the film industry here in Massachusetts, because we're thriving.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm going to basically give the same question to all of you, starting with you, Greg, too, here in the studio. Talk to me about having a place like this conference. What's the importance in getting all of these Black and brown creatives and you know, folks who are working in the media together in one space?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Crystal. I'd say, first of all, the see them, be them mentality, and it's just so important for people to see people that look like themselves and that representation, and that is key at the Konnect Conference. When I started in the film industry 6 years ago, there was very few and far in between finding people that look like me. So now with the Konnect Conference, going somewhere where it's 3 days, you're seeing people work in all different crew positions, writers, directors, producers, cast members that have really done this at the highest level. It just really makes me hopeful, and I think it's really empowering to the next generation of filmmakers. And it's really important for these production companies and ad agencies to see that we're here in Massachusetts and we're not going anywhere.
Tato?
Yeah, I'm excited about this conference because I'm coming in as a screenwriter to do a workshop with the young people. I think what the Secret Society, the Konnect Conference is doing is really great in a way that, I mean, I'm talking 20 years ago when I had just graduated from Emerson. There was nothing, I had no guidance, I had no mentors or anything. So I think having media training, what I'm doing is providing training for young upcoming screenwriters, and I know that there are opportunity for learning how to direct, the opportunities for understanding AI in our industry, how it impacts our industry. So I think that this is a great thing that is needed in Boston because young people need guidance, they need mentorship, they need training, and they will get this opportunity.
Chris?
It's very energizing. At the Loop Lab, we've been going, at least our apprentices and our staff have been going since the beginning of Konnect, and it's been a great way for our students to get more exposure to the different trade unions like IATSE and other organizations that are hiring, that are looking to recruit much of their talent. And at the same time, it's been a great way for them to network with other professionals of color in the industry. Oftentimes, it can feel very isolating doing kind of contract work, but also being a media artist, and to be able to have that space for people of color to come together, connect with each other, connect with the resources that the Secret Society of Black Creatives is kind of curating for those who are attending has really been exceptional. And with the Loop Lab, it's really important because our apprentices are in the beginning of their careers. And so this is a great opportunity for them to get in early, but also learn and get that exposure, and then ultimately build out the rest of their careers.
Yeah, and I'm also thoughtful of, we talked about this incentive for filmmaking in Massachusetts and things like that. And then I'm also thoughtful about the Secret Society of Black Creatives. And so, Narissa, I'm going to ask you, what do you think, how friendly do you think Massachusetts is, or welcoming to Massachusetts is for BIPOC creatives, basically, especially in the film industry when we're talking about trying to take advantage of this tax incentive?
Well, I would say that after the pandemic and the fact that, the whole George Floyd happened, the state did a little bit of deep diving into who they are and what they are, realizing that BIPOC people need to have a voice. We need to be present. We need to be at the table. We need to have someone that is sitting there. The Secret Society of Black Creatives has worked very hard to be those people that are having seats at those tables, working with the governor, working with the city of Boston, working with other cities around the state, Springfield, Brockton, Lowell, Lawrence, New Bedford, talking to these mayors, talking to these representatives to say, listen, we are here and we have a presence in this state. And for a lot of them, and I'll give them a little bit of grace because they didn't know we existed, and not that they didn't know because they didn't want to know. There simply wasn't a platform for them to find out. And so we, on the board of directors at the Secret Society of Black Creatives, have come together to give a place for these representatives, for these people who are coming into this state, who want to film in this state, who are looking to make sure that their crew and their cast are diverse, have a voice, have a place, have a platform, so that they can come to us and say, hey, we're looking for this director, or we're looking for a gaffer, or we're looking for someone to be a part of wardrobe. And we can say, yeah, right here, we've got a whole bunch of people of color that can help you and be a part of your particular production. I feel like the state was not aware of our presence, but now because of the Secret Society, we're trudging forward, and we're setting an example of what can and should be done to represent us in this community.
For sure. Greg, I know that you came into the film and media space a little bit later in life. How difficult was the system for you to navigate? Yeah,
so film is something that I was always interested in. I've always been interested in the arts, but it was one of those things where I didn't really know anybody who was in the industry. I had went to college for something different. It didn't work out. And then I really thought about film, but didn't want to jump into those student loans again. So I was fortunate enough where somebody I grew up with and had played football with was working in the film industry. And one day they just needed help. So they asked, I came, and that was it. But I was working as a barber for 11 years before that, and just dealing with people and talking and just really, creating that sense of a vibe. I think that's really been my most helpful transferable skill, because it's more about connecting with the people on set for me versus everything's going to come together. We all know we're all highly trained professionals. So I think being a barber and coming in late into the industry, it really helped me focus on some of the other things that other people don't think about. Sometimes. Yeah, the intangibles that make a film or a project work, and creating an environment to foster creativity. Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody to feel safe, to have that fun. We're going to get the work done. I haven't left a commercial or a short film or anything like that where the shoot didn't get finished and we didn't get some great stuff. So let's have fun while we're doing it. We got to be here for 10, 12 hours. Let's have a good time.
Yeah. Tato and Chris, I know you all work with young people trying to get into the film industry and media space, TV and things like that. I mean, what do you talk to them about? What are some of the challenges that they are going to come up against, you know?
Oh, man. Being a Black creative, being a Black filmmaker comes with many challenges. I mean, you just have to look at that report and see that 1% and realize that we have a long way to go. There are not enough opportunities. But I think for me, what I say to my students is that don't look at Hollywood. Hollywood is not the end at all. Because I think when you focus on Hollywood, you're knocking on a door that will only open slightly for a few to come in. I think if young people can just shift their mind and look internally and look at what they're capable of, because our stories need to be told. I always say, find means to do it. The only obstacle for me has always been funding, and I make my students aware that funding, because we have the talent, we have the voice, we want that representation, but when we're not giving the resources, when we're not giving the funding, then it's challenging. But the thing is, when I looked 20 years ago, when I was starting out, film used to be so expensive. Just to make one film, you're looking at thousands or even, millions sometimes. But nowadays, you can make a film with your cell phone.
That's right.
And put it out there. You can make your voice heard. There's so many, the tools are accessible now. But if you want to take it to the next level, the limitation is always the funding. It's not that we're not talented. It's not that we don't have the skills to make it happen. Our kids are going through the Loop Lab, right? The Loop Lab is doing a lot of training. Secret Society of Black Creatives are doing workshops all the time. The students have access to that, and we as I'll call ourselves elderly filmmakers. Senior. Years like that. Right. But we are trying our best to mentor these young people, and we're giving them. And for me, on my side, I see so much talent. I work with a lot of young people. I see the drive. I see the passion. But it's just. Narissa was talking to the governor and the mayor. It's just really recognizing that it's not enough to say, to kind of open the doors, but you also have to figure out how to support. And really, film is the most expensive art form.
Yeah.
And when we are trying to make films and we don't have money, we're not going to get to the level that will be competitive. That's why we're still at 1.1% filmmakers in the big top film festivals or in Hollywood, right? Because it just comes down to money.
Yeah, Chris?
For me, the practice, or centers the practice in this work and workforce development is kind of the mile deep, inch wide perspective. So it's not just talking about training and mentorship. It's also another piece to it, which is responding to human development. Many of our young adults that are coming in, whether it's our high school program in BPS, Boston Public Schools, or it's our apprenticeship, which is 18 to 26-year-olds, those young adults are coming in with many skills that they don't really know that they have. Like some of them are already doing social media content, short form video, and they come into our program looking to gain even more skills. And so for us, that's an opportunity to not only train them up, but also coach them on financial management. So that is a huge part of our programming. In addition to that, how to negotiate with your client, working with clients, because none of them have had that experience. How do you create a proposal? How do you actually pitch, make a pitch deck? And so they're learning so much more than just how to work, Adobe Premiere Suite and editing and working on a Red Cinema camera or DSLR cameras. They're really gaining holistic, transferable skills that will allow them to, if they decide not to continue on media, they'll know how to do project management, right? Or they'll know how to be more self-effective in administrative work. So those are the things that I think are really critical to give a population that are not underrepresented but underestimated in media arts a leg up and an opportunity to really thrive and survive in the modern 21st century media arts industry. And I want to also add that it's not without mentors and partners like Tato and Greg and others who have taken and worked with our young adults, and also Secret Society of Black Creatives and Narissa, but also GBH, that have worked with our young adults, have given them greater exposure and have created a model of representation for them of what success could be like in media. I think that it's really invaluable. Oftentimes when young adults apply for our program, many of them want to be rappers or they want to be singers. And a big part of that is not just about them wanting to be a rapper. It's really about what successful models of representation are they seeing in this industry from people that look like they look, talk like they talk, and come from neighborhoods similar to their own.
Well, let's talk about representation, right? And then we saw Black Panther and what that did for the community. We're seeing more and more films. I think Denzel Washington himself is trying to remake all of August Wilson's plays into films and things like that. When you see this type of movement, I think of Wakanda as, like, people were adopting Wakanda as a fictional, non-fictional place. What does that do for the industry and then for that next generation of creatives? And Narissa, I'm going to start with you with that question. Do we see a spike, even the color purple, right? Like, do we see a spike in studios wanting to pull more Black folks to that table to think about what the next series of films looks like?
Well, I can say this to you, Crystal. It's about the dollar. I mean, the reality is we as people of color, we go out and we spend money, and they didn't think that we did, whoever they is represented in this moment. And when Wakanda brought in $1 billion, $1 billion, not a million, not a trillion, but $1 billion within 30 days, Hollywood woke up and said, wait, huh? Oh my goodness, is that possible? Within a month. And so from there, it was like Wakanda just opened up these doors, gave us more platform, gave us more voice, gave us presence in the room, allowed us to not just depend on the production companies of old that had been setting the tone and keeping the gate of where we could as a people be able to produce things. The international markets began to open up in ways that we weren't prepared for, but we accept and we love. And now the stories of being Black in America are starting to just roll in. You get more and more stories. I mean, look at Creed, a spinoff from Rocky that totally turned into a whole new franchise. And I think that where Hollywood is now is that even though after the strikes, they're looking to figure out what is going to happen in this industry because everyone is hurting. But the reality is that they're looking for that next big trilogy. They're looking for that next series. They want something that has to do with constant content creation. And so where they're looking for it is in various markets. They're looking for it here in Boston. We've got scouts coming on I would say an every month basis, looking to see, can I film here? Is it possible to be here? Are there things that we don't even know about that exist? They've got an amazing market that is right here. The tax incentive helps, of course. But at the end of the day, Crystal, it comes back to money. It's all about how much money can be made, how little can be spent, and how much we're going to be able to put into the pockets of the community in which we live.
Yeah, Greg, you getting more work or?
I'd like to think so. There's more calls coming around. There's definitely, from a Sweet of the Juice standpoint, more advertisement agencies and brands are willing to talk. And I've had some very productive conversations lately where people are saying, you know, usually I like to say we get calls for the Chitlin circuit. So it's if there's a musician, there's an athlete, there's music, it's something of that nature, or the calls where people are blowing me up. Hey, we need you. You're available? But now I think with American fiction, with Wakanda Forever, people are seeing, like Narissa said, they're spending money. We're spending money. Like, they are making money. So it's starting to expand from the Chitlin circuit to some more jobs that are just for everybody that my counterparts that don't look like me might get, you know? So I'd like to think so, but, you know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
So, Tata, you know, with this exposure and with a little bit more leverage, you get to tell different stories, too. You mentioned the Chitlin Circuit, Greg. You know, do you find that this also gives filmmakers, screenwriters, more, you know, leverage to be able to tell stories beyond of what people think the Black experience is?
Yeah, there's two parts, because I would like to address your first part of the question. In terms of the 25% incentive that they give, I do feel like when I think about the film industry here, the Black film independent producers, I don't know how much we're benefiting from that. In terms of Hollywood coming in, they come in and it's almost like it's a parachute in. How many of us are getting these jobs? I'm talking from a screenwriter and director point of view. I think there may be jobs, but how many of us Black filmmakers, Black and brown filmmakers, are getting opportunity to be part of that, those big Hollywood studio films? So that's the question, right? Because a lot of the times to work for a studio, you have to be in the union. How many of us are in the union?
I see.
Right? Here in the local union. How can you get into the union? Are there any barriers? Are there any obstacles? And I've heard how hard it is to get into the the sound engineer union. I don't know what it's called in the rest of it. Yeah. So I know how hard for young people to make it, because you have to be sponsored by someone. It's a whole process that has made it harder for regular folks to get in. And once you're in the union, you have opportunity for those jobs. But it's just so many steps and so many barriers for us to actually access that. So I think that's something to think about. But in terms of telling other stories, I think for me, just as a filmmaker, I'm an immigrant. I came here 26 years ago to come to college, come to Emerson. And because, you know, when I look at Blackness, there's all kinds of Blackness, especially in Boston. There's diversity in Blackness. And my stories focus on especially women of the African diaspora, African women. And whether or not I get the funding or I get the resources, I'm still going to tell my story. And I've continued to tell my story with or without money, because I find ways to continue to make my films. And I've worked with community. There are many ways that you can get support as a filmmaker. And I found those, you know, where I work with small community organizations that need help. And, you know, I've collaborated with Department of Public Health to work with youth organizations to make short films for young people.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like there's just so many other stories to tell, not just the big blockbuster films that we see that come here, but there's other opportunities that we could look at as filmmakers of color to get our films made and our films out there.
Yeah. Chris, in the last 2 minutes, I mean, what would you say? Does he feel like those types of films actually increases the popularity of wanting to get into the business and then also being able to tell our stories?
The short answer is yes.
Love it.
And I will say that it's a little bit more complex. I think that in the history of what we've seen in modern cinema is this continual practice of pushing against this idea that diversity works within the context of mainstream films, right? Like, this is not going to be something that sells internationally, or this is going to be a project that's not going to really sell to a white audience. And I think with projects like Black Panther 2, Black Panther 1, other projects like that where you have all Black cast and you have Black writers, we're seeing that that's not true. And if you look at the data and statistics around the Gina Davis Institute or the Edinburgh Institute, and when we talk about racial representation within media, we're seeing that actually those films are making money, and they're making a lot of money. So it's actually in the best interest of the broader film industry to adopt diversity as a practice. And so I think that for us, you know, some people are a little bit more optimistic. I want to push a little bit forward in recognizing that even now, 2024, there's a lot of challenges that we're facing here. A big part of the film industry locally here in Massachusetts, but also broadly, is all relationship-based. So I've talked and been hired as a consultant with many media houses, media production firms that are mostly all white men. And they're saying, we don't know where the black people are. We don't know how to hire black people.
Yeah.
We don't know how to, like, literally, these are some of the things. And on one hand, I can be like, oh, wow. But on the other hand, there's a deeper problem at play.
For sure.
And
yeah, you're so right. And we're going to continue this conversation. But for now, that's the end of our broadcast and the end of our show. Thank you so much to all of our guests, and thank you for watching. But stay with us as we continue this conversation on our digital platforms, YouTube and Facebook. Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Haynes, your host. We are on YouTube and Facebook with our post show, continuing our conversation on representation in the media. And, you know, Narissa, Chris was really touching upon a really important point about this idea about diversity in both the film and TV industries, other parts of media, and this sort of false scarcity mindset that only so many black stories have space in this in that arena. So I wonder if you could just sort of pick up on that as well.
I feel that sometimes we, as consumers, feel like we don't have a voice. And when you are a consumer of content, you have a voice because you're the one paying for it. So if you say, and if you express in writing, in emails, in videos, whatever, hey, I want more content that looks like me, then you're going to get it at some point. It may take a little while, but it will happen. We have been standing on the shoulders of those who have come before us, who have done exceptional work in this industry. We have those like Greg Morris, those who are like Cicely Tyson. They were there before us so that they could give us the shoulders to stand on, so that they could push for us to even be where we are right now in this industry. And so it's up to us, all of us sitting here in this moment right now, to continue their legacy by pushing even more for those who are younger than us coming up to be able to have even more of a presence. And because we're in a society now where there's a camera everywhere, you can make movies out of cameras that are on the sides of buildings. You can go and find different avenues of creating your own personal content just based off of things you can get on YouTube. Obviously, you have to get permission, but at the same time, there are so many different roads now that were never there before. It was almost as if the big three, the NBC, the ABC, all of those, it was just one or three roads. Now we have multiple lane highways. So it's all about you finding your voice, you finding your ability to create bodies of work, however you can make it happen, and then getting it out to the masses. If you keep trudging forward, you're going to be seen.
Absolutely. And Greg, I want you to pick up on something too as well. You were talking about diversity on sets, and that being also an important fact about telling stories and being a part of the industry.
Yeah, so, back in the day, it was a big thing about diversifying in front of the camera, and unfortunately, it didn't reflect behind the camera. So we're kind of dealing with that. Well, we're not kind of. We're really dealing with that now and trying to clean that up. And Chris was talking about before, and Narissa was saying that some of these companies, they say that they don't know these people and they're not in the area. In my experience, they do say that, and then we tell them of these people. And whether these people are reached out to or not is a different story. And, you know, these people are here, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to work in the commercial industry, but also to be able to tiptoe in the independent film industry. And, you know, you see so many people of color that have the technical know-how, have the skill, have the experience, but they can't get in the union because they might not know somebody who can give them a reference. If these people aren't in your circle, they're not in your network, how am I ever to get a reference to get that leg up? You know, so and it's Secret Society of Black Creators has been doing a great job. Loop Labs, Sweetie the Juice Films, and a bunch of other people of talking to these companies like IATSE, Production Workers Guild, and figuring out how we can diversify these unions, you know, to make it easier for everybody else, because they're going to keep us out and say we don't know the technical know-how. And the second thing, as Tatu said, was funding, you know, and
yeah, for sure. And I'm also thoughtful about what some of these other outside market forces, like the strike and then AI and things like that, and how that affects the Black and brown creative who's trying to just get into the industry. I know, Chris, you talk a lot about AI and work in that space as well. So talk to me a little bit about how does that affect us when we're trying to make a film, just trying to get there and get parity or equity?
Absolutely. So just looking at the industry and people of color getting into the industry on the baseline, there's already, for many folks, a challenge, right? There's already that underestimation I talked about. And because of that, you know, you're already at a deficit when you come in. If you make a mistake, guess what? It's probably going to be something that could potentially get you on the no-call list, right? Versus a little bit more forgiveness for other individuals. So with that being said, with the Loop Lab, we are focused on equity in the fairest, in the actual sense of the word, and fairness. So if our students aren't able, for example, to get access to Adobe Premiere Suite or actual MacBook Pro to utilize, we give it to them. Same thing with cameras. We give them all cameras. So whatever they don't have, we try to balance the playing field by giving it to them. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. In addition to that, there's this other piece of AI. So the big question now is it's very disruptive across the board. And I think that the big thing there is, instead of being a neo-Luddite against technology, no, the reality is AI is the present. And we need to know how to navigate and utilize the technology for the betterment of one's professional career, because that is just the reality of where we're going. So for us, we're developing curriculum that's really centered around what are some practical ways that you can utilize some of the AI in Adobe Premiere Suite, or even Sora once it is released, which Sora has been something that many across the board in media arts has been a talking point. But with that being said, for us, our stance is let's embrace it and let's get ahead of the curve so we can train these young Black and brown apprentices and young adults so that by the time they are in the industry, they already have the understanding of how to utilize it for the benefit of not only their own independent projects and or for a company.
Right. Tato, you work with young people. I teach journalism in college, so AI is always on the mind of just papers and stuff like that. But you're teaching them to go into an industry where AI is going to be a factor.
Yeah, you know, at the beginning of my class in screenwriting at Emerson, I had to put it out there to my students because I am aware that AI can write a script, right? And I tested it. What I said to them was like, the script is really bad and you get a bad grade. Because the script is just very formula. There was no soul to it. There was no, it's a fact. And they also tested it. And I said to them, I was like, writing is from the soul, is from the heart. AI is affecting even the screenwriter strike was all about AI. Part of it was about AI. But I feel like if they understand how to use AI, but AI not to use it in such a way that they can lose that copyright, because that's another thing to think about, especially for young creators. If you create something with AI, you don't own it. If you write a book with AI, Amazon now, like if you publish through Amazon publishing online platform, you have to put in that it was written by AI, and you don't own it because AI is it's not, if it's written by machine, there's no ownership to it.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about for young creatives. Because if you don't have ownership to your material because you created by AI, how are you going to make a living? How are you going to sell your thing? And I think it's going to come to, because I think that there was a case of a photograph that was created by AI. And the person was trying to get copyright of it, and that was the conclusion.
Yeah.
And it's headed that way in terms of whether it's a film or even writing. So at the end of the day, how are you making a living as an artist if you don't have ownership? If a machine, and now you can't even have ownership to your things.
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
that's just something to think about. But AI scares me as an artist because for me, I also do drawing as well, and I see with photography, I'm scared for photographers just because AI is a combination of so many other people's work, like into one. Like if you create a photo, if you create a a graphic with AI, it's still taken from so many millions and millions of photos that exist online.
Well, Greg, I'm thoughtful too. Like, is AI a fear for you as well?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For all the things that they're mentioning.
Yeah.
But like Chris said, I think we got to lean into it as well. You know, like I myself am a terrible artist, so storyboarding and it's an independent film or something like that, and I don't have the budget, then it's easy for me to go out and plug those things in or put it into a generator, or certain things like, note-taking, and then trying to get those notes and some organization in there. I think they're great for things like that, but as you said, no soul.
Yeah.
So I'm not fearful, as I'm sure you're not fearful, that it's going to take, the screenwriting away from you, because they can't mimic that soul.
It can't write from the heart, and that's what writing is all about. So, but I know it's getting better.
Yeah.
The thing is, the machine, you keep feeding it, it gets better and better and better. So I think it's just, and I'm not saying I embrace it to some extent, and I use AI tools. I just discovered that a PDF, it can summarize on the side, which was amazing, right? So there's so many good things that come out of it. But
I
at
also
the
want
same
Narissa
time,
to jump in too here as well. AI, it's the future, but do we have to be afraid?
So we're going to be talking about that at the Konnect Conference on Friday and Saturday. So we definitely are going to have some really great conversation in both of those workshops. I encourage everyone to come out and be a part of it. But I can also say this, that AI is here to stay. It's not leaving. It's never going away. We have to learn to embrace it. We have to figure out how to use it to our advantage as opposed to the opposite way. Yes, as Tato said, it's about the more we feed it, the more it learns how we operate, how we maneuver. The matrix is real. But at the same time, we are human. We have our own humanity. And as long as we fight for our own humanity, then we will overcome the obstacles of AI. AI is going to be transcending across all platforms of industry and business and art. So what do we do to utilize AI to our advantage? And also, how do we protect ourselves and our work? These are the things we're going to be talking about at the Konnect Conference.
All right. And I love that's a great way to wrap up the conversation. We are out of time, and we'll end it here. What a great discussion. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and for you all for watching on our digital platforms and of course, on GBH. I'm Crystal Haynes. Have a great night.
Thank you.